Welcome to Boyce's Barrelback edition 19, I think this is, from my basement down in sunny Portugal. Well, last time I got the side stringers on the starboard side of the boat. This time I'm just sort of working up the front here just to get the curves and stuff. So this is what I'm doing at the moment. I've removed these two top stringers just because they're just getting in the way. And then the problem was coming back to this, the chine here, as you can see, is heavily curved, and this piece of wood left on its own formed pretty much a straight line, as you see this one does. I've just cut these off roughly, just starting at the front here, so that they roughly take up their shape. But this clearly had to be forced into more of a curve, and I think this one probably will as well. I'll show you from the top in a second. So this is what I've been working at, and this looks easy, but boy is it not. I mean, apart from the two angles here to get this piece of wood to fit there, you've got to get this curve right, and obviously the wood you can see here is curving in, I don't know, 30 degrees or something off of the vertical, and as it works its way here, it's getting probably near to vertical, if not just a few degrees off. And the only way I can see of doing that is a bit of trial and error, is to just cut this piece of wood, put it in, shave a bit more off. I started with a 200mm wide plank and then got it wrong. This bit I had to cut off in the inside, and I used that straight edge there because I didn't have enough wood bowing out there. But now I've got this as a template, I can make one for the other side. But this is kind of first go really at the curve. Well, one at least I want to show on video, and it's I don't think it's quite right there. What I've done here is from just looking from above, you're looking at this piece of wood on the outside, which of course will be faired off mainly because you can see the angle there. It's actually what you're gonna see once you've fed that is the line is going to be probably something along there. So I've just guesstimated it with a piece of tape as it filters out there to a vertical piece there, just so that you can look at that line to judge this curve against there, against that, to see if it's looking reasonable. And that's my first attempt putting it and gluing, screwing it back on. So you can still see there's still quite a curve, isn't there, that is possibly, when you look at this one, that's going to come out a little bit. That really, I think, is going to have to come in probably about another centimetre, and then just wash it out at either end there to nothing, and then try to replicate again the curves to make that piece of wood not bend quite as much as that. And then I'll have a go at making this piece. So I tried working it out with angles and stuff like that, and it's a bit of geometry, and I gave up. It's just too complicated. So I just it takes a lot more time, but you just have to cut it, try and fit, and then go back, cut it, sand it, plane it, and eventually you get to something like this, which is what I'm after. So I'll mark it up again, I'll plane a bit more off, put it back on, and come back when we've got it fitting properly. So, what have I been doing? I've trimmed off probably another centimetre off of this curve here to bring this more in line. It's looking a lot better now. Probably taken off a little bit too much there and not enough there, but a little bit there just to trim off the end, just to get that in the flush. But it's looking at the curve is the bit that I'm really interested in, and you'll see now that that curve is pretty much following the same shape as the shear there, which is okay, but it's not quite what I do. I need to take, I think, about another centimetre off that, just to begin to reduce that curve, because we're obviously coming down to flat, aren't we here? So, hello again. Another quick update. I believe I finished my lower two stringers in forming them into a nice curve. I probably spent more time, I think, on this little bit of the boat than I have on any other at the moment. It's been quite difficult just trying to figure out how to get the shape right, to make it look right. Let me show you what it looks like anyway. There's the two pieces of wood that I finally cut into shape, and it's got a nice curve to it. I can probably show you a better curve there. Bearing in mind that that's the bit we're fairing to there, that will be the original line, and so now I've just moved this bottom one in a little bit and started flattening this one out. Got two more, and then we end up pretty much at a flat surface there at the chine. So I'm very pleased to have done that. It's so time consuming because each time you have to overcut it. There's no point undercutting it because you end up ruining the piece of wood, and then you have to take it off. And I've got it screwed here into the front nose section, into this through the frame, and you have to take that off, undo the clamps and all of that, release this, and then go and stick it in your vise, mark it with pencil lines obviously before you do, and then plane it and bring it back, and then it's just been constantly doing that. This bottom one I actually I over-planed a bit of it, and it ended up with a big gap, and so I was going to bin this piece of wood, but then I realised actually it would do fine. I could cut it down, and so I didn't lose the wood, I just reused it for that piece. So that's I'm glad I've done that. These two bits now, I can take them off. I can go and draw a pencil line on the next piece of wood, and then I can just replicate them for the other side. That should all fit. I'm going to get on and fit these next two stringers here and just see what sort of shape I'm going to get here, because it's possible this third one up may just need a little bit of a bend. But actually my piece of wood which was wedged there, this is the bit here, and that's how I got the shape, by putting it in there and wedging it against this piece of wood here. I could push it out so that I could put the piece of wood underneath and draw a pencil line, which gave me the line that that I wanted to cut and plane down to. I didn't. I actually cut it 5mm proud, and then tried it. It was obviously too big, and then I could plane it down a little bit, because you've got to get this angle as well. You've got to plane that down, and that angle there gradually bleeds off so it's perpendicular, which just makes it all the more interesting. Anyway, it was a very interesting piece of woodwork. I'm not sure next time if I would do it any differently. I don't know how to do it differently. Somebody replied and told me about laminating some plywood behind, and that sounds quite a good idea to get the curve. It sounds quite time consuming, but again, the wood isn't curved. You've got to force it into the curve with a piece of this wood. And then you've got the piece of wood in the way where you want to put laminating plywood. So I'm not quite sure I got the drift of exactly what was being suggested, so it didn't seem to work for me. Anyway, that's what I've done. I'm really pleased that that's kind of coming along. As you can see, the amount of time it's taken to fit these things now, it's kind of consuming. But it's getting there. Very pleased. So I'll crack on with that. I've got to go to London tomorrow, and I'm back at work for a couple of weeks, and so nothing's going to happen. I was trying to get this episode out, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think I've got enough material yet. But stick with it, and I'll put episode 19 on as soon as I can. Cheers. Greetings. Back to work from my travels. I'm back in my basement, and I tried to get this video out, but unfortunately the last one I'd forgotten to press the button, the record button. So it's a bit strange really for a pilot. You'd think they'd be quite good at buttons. So here we go. I'm having to remake this one, which is all about the curvature of frame 7 to the bow section. Obviously because of this, I don't know what you'd call it, this former here, that had a large part to play with forming this shear into such a curve. And these, of course, are just touching the bow section, and they don't have that to force the curve, and so that is why I think that we're not getting, well, we're getting this sort of straight line effect here. So I think I've already mentioned that I've started doing this one, and it was all trial and error, but eventually I got it to work, and to 90 degrees there, 90 degrees there, but obviously with an angle about 25, I think I worked it out there, which comes back pretty much to a right angle there. and to get that right. As you can see, I have done the next one as well by the same actually, well, it's not, and that's the purpose of this video, was just to refine the way that I did it, because that just took too long. It was lots of trial and error. I lost one piece of wood, which I think is there, and I did it by putting this strut across here to the other side to force the curve, and then trying to work out what it was. So for this one, what I did is I applied a little bit more maths and savvy to it. So I used a laser sight, and here it is here. Now it's going to make an awful beeping noise, so I won't suffer it too long. But basically, by putting it there and the line on there and the line just on that corner there, I could work out by holding it still from a measurement from there to the corner. If I turn that off now. So by getting a line, a laser line, from that corner there to that corner there, in the mid part, at the most point of curvature, I could measure, and as you can see, that came out at 70. I did the same on this one. I forget what it is, but I thought I must be able to work down a decreasing curve from this one to 70. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and work out what this one, and actually this is slightly curved as well. I think it was 5 or 6 millimeters out. So what I did was I transferred it to a piece of paper, and I worked out. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 is the shear, 6 was the chine, and the shear was 85. The second one up was 70, and the top chine was 6. So what I did is I plotted a graph. And I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 there, and out here I did millimeters. And starting at 85, I plotted frame, what should I say, stringer 1, and there it is there. So this one I knew was 70, and number 2 came across, and 70 was there. And this one I knew was 6 and was 5 millimeters. So there's 6 and there's 5 millimeters. And as you can see, I could draw a curve. And from that curve, it was pretty easy to plot now 3, 4 and 5, 3, 4 and 5, come down here, and as you can see, 5 was 19, I called it 20, 4 is 30, and 3 was 45 mil. So that's the amount of curve that these have got to sustain. So with that, I knew that this one was now 45 out there, and so what I did was I got a piece of plywood, and I made this because this is a lot easier to cut, stuck that in under there and under the front there, and I drew the curve for 45, and what I did was to put this piece of wood here to force that out to 45 millimeters out. So I had the piece of curve, and this is the curve along the inside of that piece of wood. Actually, I could probably show it there a lot better, couldn't I? Like so. And then with that piece of wood, I was then able to transfer it to this piece of wood. But of course, it's not as simple as that, because if I just cut that curve out the front, I would have a really thick piece of wood again, and I didn't want to waste a really thick piece of wood. So what I did was I transferred that curve to the back of that piece of wood. I think I've got that right. Yeah, and the reason I did that was that once I'd cut that out the back of the piece of wood, that is actually the shape of where it should be at the front. And so I was able then to stick that piece of wood on the front, and then make this curve here and glue it on. Actually, that's not quite true. This piece of wood, I put that on the front because it was, I had a thick enough piece of wood to do that. The next piece of wood, however, and that is actually that piece of wood, that's this frame here. So you can see that's the right length, and that is 30 mil out. And so by cutting my piece of wood, I hope I'm making sense here. There is my piece of wood, and there it was at the back, and you can see that I've cut that out there. That does fit, honestly. And then what I did was that piece of wood I stuck on the front, and it's there. So now that piece of wood is my shape, which I know to be 30mm out of the center line along there. And so there is my piece to go into there, which is going to take a little bit of trimming just along that edge there. And what I will do is release this screw here to let that frame out, and then I can attach this on the lines here at this end. I can attach this right at the base of where that piece of wood is coming through the frame, and then I'll screw it in there, and then I should be able to bend this piece of wood in, and it will form my curve. So that is maybe quite complicated, but a little bit of maths, a little bit of simple graph gives me the dimensions I want, and it's also less wasteful in the wood. A little bit of a delay, obviously, because you've got to glue it and wait for it. Get your favourite spoke shave out to form the curve and make sure it's nice and smooth, sand it all down, and a little bit of cutting to get it to fit, and bingo, there we go. So that's it's taken a long time, isn't it, to do all these little fiddly bits, but it's proving the curve down here. And if the proof of the pudding is in the eating, so we've got a descending curve here, or reducing curve, and that's looking about right now, because my plank of wood is going to lay smoothly on there. A little bit of fairing to be done, perhaps. As you can see, that one is now too straight, and that's got to come out 20mm, and then by the time I get to here and fair that chine off, that should all fit reasonably well. And of course, when I come to do this side, I have to just take these off, turn them upside down, and cut another one, and that should be a lot easier to replicate, because I want to replicate the curvature exactly the same on both sides. So that's how I've done it. I don't know how other people have done it. Some people that's better. It's just a little quick one that I've learned actually through trawling through the various websites on boat builders. How to, when you're fairing these in, which is going to come in a lot for doing the chines and the shears of fairing. I've done that line down here when I, in fact you can see it here. There's the line for the sloping edge that I've got to do there, which changes, as you can see. It's near vertical there, and it's about 25-30 degrees down there. But somebody said, get yourself a pencil, and then you just draw in a line there as well. And the reason being that when you come, you can obviously angle your spoke shave to get the down to the line on this side, but then when you take off the pencil line, as you see I've just done here, I drew it in and just scrape that off, then you know you're down to your limit as well on this side, and so that way you should get your perfect angle that you want. I would never have thought that. It's just so simple. Clever, eh? So another quick ending to this one. I'm off back to London for a couple of weeks, going to work, so I thought I'd just button this one up as far as I've got, and I'll get it out there. I think it's episode 19, so I can come back and start 20. Haven't been able to do much the last couple of days, but that's where I'm kind of up to this here. I've just got one more filler to put in there, just to bend that one out 20mm, and but I'm really pleased with that curve. That's looking so much nicer. And then the next lot is to start cutting in these. So I've marked out all the stringers here as per, and then I'll do it as before. I'll cut it with the saw and then just route it in. It makes it nice and clean. And then when I get down here, I'll just take these pieces of wood off, and then I can just replicate them as a 180 replica, and then that should make making this a lot quicker. Then I'm down to fairing. I can't believe it. And that's going to take a little while to start chopping off. There's quite a lot of wood to come, particularly as I get off up here. So that will be episode 21, I should imagine. I'll start doing that. So anyway, thanks for contributions. Always great to hear from people, their advice. Lots of little nuggets come my way. And it's all about a learning progress. process even. And so I hope that watching this, if you're going to build a boat, or you are, or you can either offer your tips, or it'll be helpful to you in what you do. So thanks very much for watching. If you do, like and subscribe, and I'll come back to you as soon as I can. Cheers.